2. 1, 2, 3.
Are you ready, America? It's time for another edition of Game On with your host, Stevie Ray Braun and Brad Bad News Bollinger. Sit back, relax, and enjoy Game On. Talking about your favorite sports and different parts of life. Might even get a little take on Lane Kiffin's wife. They tell you what they think and not afraid to take a stance. They'll give you the number of pleats in Charlie Weiss's pants. They're the game on guys, see sports through their eyes. Political correctness just up and dies when they give you their views on any sport you want to hear. They're the game on guys, eating fries, drinking beer.
That's right, it is Game On. Brad Bollinger, Steve Braun, glad you can join us on this Wednesday, September 11th, 2024. We'd be remiss not to mention terrorist attack that took place on this day, 8th grade for us. It's a Tuesday morning. I know exactly where I was at Childers Middle School. I'm sure you know exactly where you were. What middle school did you go to? Were you a
I was at Sequoia?
Oh yeah, that's right. You would have been Sequoia. But just thinking of those that were impacted directly by that and losing loved ones, and just where we have gone as a society since then and the impact that we have felt in so many avenues since that time. And one of the things that distracted so many from what was taking place there was sports, and that's what we have here as well. And that's the nice thing, that we're able to spend a little bit of time talking sports here on Game On. So with that, not a great way to transition, but I will, to college football, buddy, and our Oklahoma Sooners. It was not good. It was not good this past week against Houston. The offense looked anemic and that's putting it kindly. I told somebody this because I had a couple of people that text me after that game, and one of the things I feel like a sheep. I went hook, line, sinker into all the experts, all the insiders, everybody, what they were saying. Yes, there are a lot of injuries on this team. A lot. I mean, the fourth string center and Josh Bates was playing in that game, starting a majority of that game on Saturday. With that being said, and then, yes, 4 out of the top 5 receivers are down. I get that. All that being said, though, we talked about it in our preseason show, talking a preview of this college football season, and we talked about OU, and one of the things we mentioned was how deep this receiver core is. I mean, all these freshmen, if it was that deep, why is it all of a sudden an issue to have 4 of your top 5 gone? Like, I know that's ridiculous to kind of say, but if you want to say it's this super deep wide receiver core, then you should be able to shuffle guys in and out without an issue beyond just those top 4 or 5. And that's not been the case. They haven't been able to get open. They haven't been able to catch the ball. Brennan Thompson, not pointing fingers, but I'll say it out loud. Why are you pointing at me?
Oh, I was pointing at Brennan Thompson. I will point the finger for you.
Yes. But it is frustrating to see this offense be so anemic. I will say the offensive line seemed to play a little bit better this past game. If you listen or watch the Oklahoma breakdown with Teddy Lehman and Gabe Eichert. They usually deep dive after every game, and Gabe is like, "Hey, I watched the film, and they were better." Does that mean they're where we can go win SEC games? No, not by any means. And I think that's part of the other thing that I have to keep in mind is it's a process. It's going to take time, but there's a big problem looming a few weeks from now. And they wear orange. And I'm not talking about when we head south of the Red River. No, I'm talking about when Josh Heupel rolls in with his Tennessee team that has looked really freaking good early on. And they don't have an offensive line problem. I also have to remember that, yes, it is a brand new offensive line. You had Caden Green transfer out to Missouri. You have Tyler Guyton, who's the starting left tackle for the Dallas Cowboys and was able to handle Myles Garrett pretty well. 1 sack given up, 4 quarterback pressures in his first ever NFL game against Myles Garrett, who is considered one of, if not the best, defensive end in the game right now. You throw in Andrew Rame, who could have came back but left early for whatever reason. He actually went undrafted but made a team as an undrafted free agent. McCain McPower. I mean, there's Walter Rouse, who was drafted as well. You have 3 guys that are in the NFL right now. Another guy that's off at an SEC school starting for them at the same position. So 4 of your 5 are gone. 4 of those 5 are having high success, either at the same level or at a higher level. That's hard to replace. But there's also the aspect of it's the University of Oklahoma, and you expect them to have guys ready to come up behind there, and it's just not been shown right now. Do I think it can get fixed? Yes, I totally think it can be fixed, but it's just frustrating right now if you're an Oklahoma fan like I am, like you are, to be watching this offense. A lot of people want to point to, and that offensive line is going to be key because without that having success, you can't have a successful running game. Gavin Sawchuk he's a guy that has to have a good O-line. Javonte Barnes has ran really well when he actually does get a hold, but that's very rare. I was listening to the unofficial 40 with the Sooner Scoop guys. Eddie Radosevich said he went back, I think it was Eddie or George Stoya, went back and looked at it. On first down, Oklahoma's averaging about 2.5 yards per carry. It's real easy to understand why they're not successful on third down when you have that kind of start to a drive. When you're looking at second down and 7 or 8 on average, you're gonna get yourself into third and long situations that mean you can't convert on third down. And that's where this offense is right now. Yes, Seth Littrell can call a better game. He definitely can. And he's going to have to as it moves forward. Jackson Arnold's going to have to start slinging the ball around a little bit. Take those chances. Okay? But it's going to have to come down to, can this offensive line mesh? Can they get some key guys back and be able to have a consistent front 5 from one game to the next? I mean, that's the other thing. Jackson Arnold has not started behind an offensive line that has looked the same in 2 consecutive games now. In three games total as a starter, the offensive line has not looked the same at all. And it's probably not going to look the same heading into this week's game against Tulane. And that's there's a little bit of fear there, I think, if you're OU, because that's a Tulane team that looked really good against Kansas State. So all that to be said, there is concern. I think there is some shining spots of, hey, the tight ends look good. The offensive line did improve. Taylor Tatum, when he gets the ball, is good, but if he's got to learn how to pass block. Javonte Barnes is running like a madman, thankfully. Very north-south, and that's what they need right about now. It's going to be interesting, though, this game, and then you get into Tennessee, and it just and it doesn't get any easier as we move forward, outside of Maine, whenever they roll into town. Your thoughts?
Well, if I can bring any sort of positivity into this subject, because
Please
I know
try.
we want to be doom and gloom, right? We want to feel like the ship is sinking, the world is burning, but This felt like a game typically in the past, I don't know, past decade or so, that the way it played out, this is a game OU would typically lose
I agree.
when they let a team hang around, um, when they kind of stall on offense, when it just seems like the ball isn't really bouncing their way. This is when teams would come into Norman and get those rare wins in the past. But for as hard as I'm reaching right now, I really do feel like it was still a good win. Um, Depending on the defense is weird. I think that's just a new feeling for all of us, but they played their asses off. Huge safety towards the end of the game to seal it up. I just think the offense really needs to kind of adapt to their situation, right? I know that there's a lot of questions up front, and they got to deal with injuries at the wideout position, yada, yada, yada. I get it. I understand. But I would like to see this game going into play against Tulane. I want to see a game plan designed to combat those issues. I want to see more rushing of the ball. I think they need to establish the run a little bit more. They tend to, if it's not working for a few possessions, they tend to just kind of abort the run game altogether for the whole game. And it's fascinating because that's when they get in trouble, is when they completely abandon the run game, and then the pass game is not working at all. So you see what happens, much like it did last weekend. The offense just stalls every possession. I mean, the defense outscoring the offense in the second half cannot happen. I think everybody knows that, stating the obvious, but it was alarming. But I do think with a little bit better offensive game plan. See, it's funny because I remember in the first half against Houston last week, for a while there, I was like, I think this is one of the better play calling games I've seen with this new regime. There's a couple drives they looked really good. They got the rhythm going. I thought they were mixing the run and pass well. And then the wheels just fall off in the second half. And I feel like in the past, OU has had a guy to kind of steer the ship in the right direction. Whenever they would stall out a little bit, they would have that guy that obviously, back-to-back Heisman winners and Jalen Hurts even. They would have guys at quarterback that can make a play. Caleb Williams in his short time at OU,
Yep.
he would steal the ball from his own teammate to get a first down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there was just a playmaker on offense that said, okay, I'm taking over this game. And I don't know who that's going to be for OU. And that's not a knock against Jackson Arnold. I think he's got a lot of great physical tools. I'm not down on him per se. I just haven't really seen enough to be all in on him, So
Yep.
I think he kind of gets a little bit of happy feet back there with the offensive line questions. They do. I mean, the offensive line needs to play better. They play, like you mentioned, they play a little better against Houston, but there were still a lot of holes in that line. And I think we need to just go ahead and accept the fact that we need to push Barnes and Tatum to the forefront of the touches distribution. Sawchuk, I just don't think he's much of a dangerous option right now. So I'd like to see more Barnes, more Taylor Tatum. Taylor Tatum got one carry against Houston, which I found alarming, especially after his week 1 performance. Javonte Barnes, 12 rushes, 40 yards, pretty average, nothing stellar, but give those guys more touches. I mean, yes, I understand the running game can stall at times and you feel like you need to pass the ball, but just as easy as the run game could stall, the pass game can stall, as we saw in the second half. So I feel like you got to figure something out, whether it's, more off tackle runs, more, try out sweeps, trying to get the speed on the outside type of thing. if there's just a special play design they need to start working on. I mean, if they need to run more screens, I mean, whatever it may be, whatever they see in the film room, I just want to see the adjustments made. I'm not going to act like they're the worst team in the country because I think that would be an overreaction. It was a bad, bad game. And I've gotten to the point in my life where I just say, hey, let's get the win and move on. I don't want to harp on it. I think everybody knows. I think it was a good wake-up call. I don't think anybody's happy with the performance. I think they will be fully focused this week coming into the Tulane game. But something needs to change. Another option I would like to see more is I actually think Jake Roberts, the tight end, played pretty well. Bauer Sharp in week 1 had some moments. I'd like to see more of the tight ends involved in the passing game.
12
Maybe that can
personnel would
open
be
up
nice.
some things. I think utilizing those 2 big bodies over the middle, exposing those seams, maybe that'll free up the wide receivers a little bit. Deion Burks, I still think is pretty explosive. I want to see the ball in his hands more, whether, hey, maybe we can run some jet sweeps with him, even though I don't like jet sweeps that much, but just finding a way to get the ball in your playmakers' hands. I think it's time to experiment. I think it's time to figure out, hey, let's go through the playbook and see what works and what doesn't work, because what we have been doing has not been working. So just make adjustments. That's all I want to see against Tulane. We don't have to kill them by 40 points or anything like that. I just want to see improvement. It's that simple. Just a more balanced game offensively.
Toby Rowland made a good point on his show this morning. I was listening to him, and he stated because there's a lot of people, there's a number, I shouldn't say a lot, there are a number of fans or a group of fans that are asking, should they make a quarterback move? Is Michael Hawkins the guy? Go to the freshman. He's more mobile. There's talks of all these things, and you're shaking your head no, and
not yet. You can't do that yet,
you got to
because
see
you're
Jackson's got to
risking
have
your
another bad game.
5-star
Yes.
mega savior that a lot of people thought he was going to be when he came in, and you can't just throw that away after 2 games. And like I said, I don't think he's played the worst that I've ever seen. I mean, I did watch Bevel play quarterback at OU, so that's a pretty low bar to set, but I think he's still making some good throws. I mean, some of the throws he makes, I think, he's in the top percentage of guys who are only able to make that because of their physical skill set. Like, it's there. Just give him more time to develop. I mean, my God, was that his 3rd or 4th start?
That's his 3rd start.
Yeah.
Started the bowl game last year, and then he's 2 games in this season. So
Right.
3 total as the starter. And that's the thing. And that's what Toby rolled into is, okay, so if you were to go to or if you do that, is there a chance? He's like butterfly effect type deal. You do that, and you could be ruining, like you mentioned, a 5-star quarterback who would likely transfer out. Or you let him develop. Because Joe Burrow wasn't great in his first season. Chris Plank said this on Monday during his show. Joe Burrow was not great his first season at LSU. They struggled. But you know what happened the second year? It was probably the most prolific offense we've seen in quite a while in college football. So with that, is there a dynamic of, hey, we need to remember that before this season started, there's a lot of talk of, hey, 8-4 would be really good. 8-4 would be really good. Is that still possible? Yes. It doesn't look like it right now, but it's still possible. So let this team develop, let them progress, and next year's the year where you start really looking at it and going, hey, we should be competing for a championship if you're OU. And you have to do that by letting Jackson Arnold make mistakes, by having him develop. And that's what's going to take place this year. Good, bad, indifferent. It's going to happen, and you're going to have to be okay with it. And I think that's just difficult because, like you mentioned, there has been so much success at OU when it comes to the quarterback position. Josh Heupel, Jason White, Sam Bradford, Baker, Kyler, Jalen, Caleb Williams. I mean, Spencer Rattler was like 15-2 in his career win-loss record when Caleb Williams took over. Wasn't bad. Was he as great as those other three that came before him? No, he wasn't. But he wasn't terrible. He was playing behind a bad offensive line.
Well, and
And they went
to
a mobile quarterback. Yeah.
They still didn't bench him until that Texas game, right? Like,
yeah,
they were losing by multiple touchdowns. It was looking very bleak. They
Second
needed
half.
a spark plug, so they bring Caleb Williams in.
And
right?
That
Even
may be
Spencer
where we're at.
Rattler had a long leash in that scenario
Yes.
with Caleb freaking Williams behind him.
Yes.
So
went on to win a Heisman, probably
think
could have won
about pulling Jackson Arnold after 2 games.
Yep. No, I agree. I haven't gone and watched it yet, and I meant to. Aaron Murray, the former Georgia quarterback, actually did a film breakdown of Jackson Arnold through the first 2 games. And he basically says this is the reason why Oklahoma fans should be excited for the future of Jackson Arnold. That's the headline of it. I have not gotten to watch it yet. From people that I've listened to on radio, podcast, all of that, on Twitter, everybody says it's a great breakdown, and it does give you optimism if you're an OU fan. So be sure to check that out. I'll check it out as well. I'm sure Brad will. And then come next week, we can dive into that a little bit more, depending on what we see this week from Jackson Arnold against Tulane. Moving on, Oklahoma State gets a 2 overtime victory over Arkansas in Stillwater. That was a interesting game, to say the least. Just wanted to mention that. Tulsa loses to Arkansas State. Those 2 teams will face off in Oklahoma State and Tulsa this Saturday at TU. Brad, quick prediction. What are your thoughts? I don't know if this is one of your against the spread picks or bad beats, but I think Oklahoma State wins in this one. Tulsa is still developing. You got to like what you see offensively out of Tulsa. Their defense struggled against Arkansas State. Some blown coverage led to that loss, 28-24, on the road in Jonesboro. But Tulsa, when you look at Kirk Francis, I mean, they seem to have found a quarterback, surprisingly, in the walk-on from Metro Christian, 16-28 in that contest, 199 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But he has looked good so far this season. Offense struggled a little bit, but that defense really struggled for TU. Oklahoma State, on the other side, struggled defensively in the first half, able to figure it out, bend don't break, and the offense got going in the second half as well. I just like the Cowboys in this one.
Yeah, I do too. 19 points feels like a lot to give Oklahoma State, especially after really they deserve to lose the game against Arkansas. I think Arkansas pissed that game away completely. There was many opportunities for Arkansas to put the nail in the coffin as well in that game, and they just never did it. I mean, kudos to OSU, hanging in there and doing what needed to be done to get the win. But 19 points, I mean, that's a lot of points. And Tulsa, like you said, Tulsa's had some flashes this year, and I think they're going to come to play. I don't think that OSU is a team like they have been in the past where they're going to blow a lot of people out. I think they're going to try and establish that run game with Ollie Gordon, obviously. I think they're going to try and grind people out. Now, last week they had to play a little bit of catch up, so it was a little bit different of the game flow there for them. But I like OSU by 14 to 17 points, maybe. But I wouldn't feel safe taking OSU with 19 personally.
No, I don't disagree with you there. It is a little high.
And there's so many opportunities for Tulsa to come in the back door, right? Like,
yeah,
at 19, you're really like leaving a lot of weird end of game scenarios open. So I would stay away from that one personally, but it's definitely, if I had to pick, I'd take TU plus 19.
I hear you. All right. From that, let's move on to kind of our Heisman favorites, Brad. Who is it that is standing out to you? I know we've texted back and forth a little bit on who you like when it comes to the Heisman, at least as the favorite at this point in your mind. Who are some of the guys that you would point to?
Yeah. Well, first off, it's going to feel a little bit dirty. I think Quinn Ewers he seems like he's in the best position to win this thing. I think he's well established himself as an elite quarterback in the college game now. I think Texas has been rolling. They went into the big house and stomped Michigan last week. Ewers is just making all the right plays. He's not making mistakes. He's just letting his playmakers make plays. And I think that comes with the experience that he has. I mean, he's always been a quality quarterback, but this feels like one of those years, like Stetson Bennett, for example, right? Like when they won the national championship. Stetson Bennett had some hiccups and, he fell down along the way, but when they put it together and had had one of their national championship years, he was really a driving force behind it because of it was managing the game, but that's kind of got a dirty, tone associated with it now. But he was managing the game, but he was also making plays when he had to. And I think that's the key differential. And that's what I'm seeing from Quinn Ewers this year. And he's on one of the best teams in the nation, so that's always going to help him. A guy that I really, really like after, what is it, 2 weeks now? Ashton Genty from Boise State, the running back. Have you had a chance to watch him very much?
I have not got to watch him yet.
Well, let me just go over a few of his stats from the first 2 games and see if this sparks any sort of wow moment with our audience and with yourself. Week 1, they played Georgia Southern. They had an 11-point victory in that, 56-45. Genty rushed 20 times for 267 yards and 6 touchdowns. Monster performance. Last week, they go into Eugene, Oregon, and play the Ducks on their home field. Put up a hell of a fight. They end up losing the game 37-34, but Genty still came to play. 25 rushes, 192 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And that's against a top 10 team. Will they be a top 10 team when the season finishes? We don't know. They haven't really blown anybody away or anything along those lines yet. But as of now, they're still a top 10 team with a great quarterback, a great veteran quarterback, a great program, a great home field advantage. And Boise State still went in there and almost pulled off the upset. Part of the reason why I also picked them as the 12 seed in my prediction a couple weeks ago. But I mean, my gosh, 9 touchdowns rushing through 2 weeks. I'm just blown away by this guy. And I've been able to watch him. I've been able to watch his film, and some of these runs he's breaking. I'm like, that's an NFL star. Honestly, like that's how I feel. I mean, first week he had a long of 77. Second week he had a long of 70. I mean, big playmaker, but also can run between the tackles and pick up those first downs when needed, lower his shoulder. I mean, he's scary good. So I really have my eye on him. And I haven't checked what his Heisman odds are right now, but I would get in right now while you can. Because if at this pace he's on continues in any way, he's going to be hard to keep off the podium. Let's
see. What are his he is plus 200 according to Bet365. Who is this? ESPN Bet now, or ESPN Bet plus 2,500. And DraftKings, he's plus 2,200.
Yeah. And if he was at one of the major schools, he would be the favorite right now. But I think it's going to take a few weeks for people to catch on to Ashton Genty. They don't necessarily have the strongest schedule, but getting in against an opponent like Oregon in week 2 and still putting up that performance is pretty good. I still am a believer that they can get that 12 seed and be that first Cinderella opportunity, right? I just think they're a good football team. And looking at their schedule, there's not a lot of scary games left. Some of the scariest ones, I mean, they have to go to Wyoming and that's just about has nothing to do with like actual football. It's more about Wyoming. But I mean, Portland State next week. They play Washington State, Utah State, Hawaii, UNLV, San Diego State. I mean, I don't see any more losses coming up for them. So I think they could very easily win out. And if not, maybe lose one more game and keep Genty rolling. And I mean, let's see what happens. It could be fireworks from this guy. I'm telling you.
No, I'm intrigued. Whenever you text me about him last night, I started kind of looking into him, and I was like, okay, maybe I need to. I looked at just statistically, and I'm definitely gonna have to dig a little deeper as we move forward. As I try to update something real quick for myself mentally. Anybody else that stands out to you? Are those kind of the key guys?
Well, of course, I think we're going to end up seeing Ollie Gordon back in New York, most likely. Hopefully they kind of utilize him in a bigger way moving forward as well. I know they had to play a little bit of catch up last week, but just give him all the touches. So I think you got, Ollie Gordon, Quinn Ewers, the typical guys, Carson Beck. I think it's the usual suspects, but I think my outsider this year is Ashton Genty.
Here's who I'm going with. Cam Ward of Miami.
I have a hard time believing in any real Miami hype. They always let you down. And
I agree, but here's the thing. I think they've had enough transfers in. He's a good enough quarterback, and the ACC seems to be just complete chaos. So I think there is a good chance that they could be standing atop the ACC when the season's over with maybe a loss or whatever, playoff bid, a decent seed in the playoffs. And I think that could be enough. And statistically, I think he will have the numbers to where, and he'll probably have that Heisman moment. There's a high potential that he ends up in a game in which he has that Heisman moment. And I think that could lead to him having that opportunity. He's top 10 in just about every statistical category right now when it comes to passing. His rushing yards aren't anything amazing. It's not really his game necessarily. But total offense and all of that, he is up there. I think they're going to be able to score points. And in that regard, I think that could be a dynamic with Cam Ward and Miami. The other ones I'll throw out there, I think Travis Hunter, not necessarily because they're going to win games, but I think he'll just be so dynamic on both sides in all aspects of the game. I think he at least gets an invitation to New York. Again, they're going to have to win enough games. Can they do that? Personally, I don't think they're going to be able to, but you never know. He's just dynamic enough and does enough on all sides of the ball, special teams, punt, or defense, offense, that I think he has a chance. And then the other one I'll throw out there is Jackson Dart. I think there's a high opportunity for Ole Miss to be in the mix late in the season. And if that happens and he has that Heisman moment, there's a chance he could get enough votes, especially in the SEC. And those would be kind of the guys that I'd be keeping a watch out for.
Yeah. And I mean, typically I think you're right on the nose, but I think with this new landscape in college football with the 12-team playoff, I think there's going to be a lot more parity this year, which lends to non-quarterbacks getting a little bit more of a look, I feel like, than previous years. Of course, if those guys you just mentioned go undefeated or they lead their team to the playoffs with one loss or something like that, yeah, they're going to be in New York. But I just, the way that this thing's going to look moving forward, we talk about giving more teams and programs opportunity with that 12 seed possibility, right? With where they could be a Cinderella like March Madness. But I think that also shifts into the like the awards season as well with the Heisman and things like that. I think you're going to see a lot more non-quarterback positions getting a little bit more look. I mean, it's still going to be quarterback. It's always going to be quarterback dominated, but I think it just feels like there's going to be a lot of parity this season. And, you know, we can never predict what happens. And you mentioned the ACC, and that is, you're right, absolutely a toss-up. Cam Ward, Miami looks great right now. You know, they're avoiding playing teams like Clemson and NC State, who people kind of had towards the top of that conference at the beginning of the year. They've kind of fallen off, but look at Miami's schedule too. There's not a lot of scary games there. They go to play Louisville, I believe in October at Louisville. So there's a couple of chances for some slip ups, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be entertaining. And I don't think it's going to be one of the usual suspects. If it's not Quinn, I think Quinn Ewers is the favorite, but if it's not going to be him, I think it's going to be someone from the outside looking in at this particular point in the season.
All right, so that's our way too early Heisman predictions. It's really just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing if it sticks at this point, as we're just 2 weeks into the college football season. Let's transition to the NFL. Week 1 has come and gone. And Brad, before I just throw it to you to just discuss whatever, I am going to toss a softball up because you will take a baseball bat to it and then you'll chase it down and start beating it again until it is completely dead. And all I have to say is, Deshaun Watson, go. I'm literally going to hit mute on my mic and just let you go. Go.
Okay. Deshaun Watson, what a joke. And I've been saying it since it happened.
You have.
I think people are finally catching up to how I felt all along. And what a disgusting way for that Baker-Cleveland marriage to end, in my opinion, because Baker accomplished things in Cleveland that they hadn't had in a very, very long time. And he did all of that with the pressure of being the number 1 overall pick, with the pressure of putting that city on his back and trying to take the Browns to the playoffs and, you know, trying to get back and possibly go to the Super Bowl. And, you know, he comes out and starts with his hair on fire, right? In rookie season, sophomore season, looks great, wins a playoff game, beats his division rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers, in a playoff game. For the Cleveland Browns won a playoff game. I just want everyone to understand what I'm saying right now. They still haven't done it since he left, by the way. But then the following season, he gets hurt. You know, he's playing with a torn shoulder. In my opinion, I think the coaching staff or someone in that front office should have had a long, hard talk with him and said, hey, we love your fight. We love what you're doing, but I think it's best if we just pull you here and get you healed for next year. But him playing with a very bad shoulder, and, you know, he made a lot of mistakes and didn't play very well, which is to be expected when you have an injury like that. But the way that they abandoned him so quickly after that season was alarming. And the moment they saw an opportunity to bring in a very controversial option at quarterback who had been out of the league as far as playing wise, and all of this, you know, the sexual assault allegations and, you know, all the massage therapists taking him to court and things like that. It's just
a new one now.
Excuse me?
There's a new one now. A new sexual assault allegation that just came out.
They keep coming out of the woodwork. And what bothers me the most is the hypocritical actions of the Cleveland Browns organization, because the way they spun it is Baker was kind of immature. He wasn't necessarily, you know, the leader they were looking for. And I just laugh about that because, you know, they're looking for maturity. So they go with Deshaun Watson and make him the highest paid quarterback in the league. And he was still the highest paid quarterback in the league until very recently when Dak signed his new deal. It was just a joke of a situation for a joke of an organization, and that's why they're the Cleveland Browns. And I hope they're cursed forever. I hope there's a Baker Mayfield curse, and they're cursed for another 100 years because they deserve it. And it sucks because they have some players that I really like on that team. Amari Cooper's just a fantastic player. Nick Chubb's a great player. Myles Garrett. There's a lot of things to like. But damn, they just can't help themselves. They're just the Cleveland Browns, and the Cleveland Browns are going to Cleveland Brown. And you've seen what's happened so far this year. Deshaun Watson looks atrocious. They need to pull him, honestly. Jameis Winston needs to be playing for the Cleveland Browns after 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Baker Mayfield is leading the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to a monstrous Week 1 victory. 4 touchdown passes, 289 yards passing. This is coming off of a playoff win after following the greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady. And Baker was cast off, right? He was sent to Carolina. Carolina's so bad, as we saw in Week 1 as well. But then he goes to LA Rams, and he gets a chance to kind of work on some things with McVay, and you saw what he did with 2 weeks, or I'm sorry, with 2 days notice, and not even knowing the playbook, and leads them to a last minute drive for a victory on a national TV game. So you saw little sparks of, oh yeah, Baker still got it. And luckily he ended up in Tampa Bay, and it's turned out to be the perfect fit for him. And I'm so happy for him. And I'm so happy the Browns are miserable. And I hope they're miserable for a very long time. And I don't ever want anybody to be miserable. But I want the Cleveland Browns to be miserable for the rest of my life. Thank you for your time.
So I've got to play you this. It is from, if I can get it pulled up. Hold on. Let's try this again. Here we go. All right. This is from 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland on Monday. The Ken Carman show with Anthony Lima. The very first caller had this to say.
Sure. All right. Dave in Macedonia, you're first up on The Fan. Hello.
Good morning, boys.
All right.
He's quoting Daniel Caffey. Please. There's some, two numbers. You'll figure them out. 42.9, 144.
What is all this?
Watson's quarterback rating, Mayfield's quarterback rating.
Oh, Christ. I can't do this for one more second. No. The first call out of the box, we're going to do this. The very first call of the box, we're going to do this. No. I know what his quarterback rating was. I know that he was good. Guys, I'm not doing it right out of the damn box. Can I have a little bit of time before we do this? Can I have a little bit of time? That he ain't coming home. He ain't coming back. Only to play us. That's it. He had a great day down there. Congratulations on all his success. I can't undo the trade. I can't undo it. You ready to go to another one?
Go ahead.
It's too good. Too good.
This is one of those sweet moments in sports. You don't get a lot of these sweet moments. It's mostly heartbreak with the teams you root for, and it's mostly losses, honestly. But there's a flicker of hope. Maybe there's a championship one year. Maybe a miraculous season happens. But this is one of those moments for me where, as you know, I know full well I could have been a homer for a very long time about it, but I truly believed that he was a good NFL quarterback, and I just thought the treatment was insane. And I mean, take a look at how many offensive coordinators he had in his first few years in the league, and it's like he never had any sort of stability or support at any point in his NFL career. And now he's finally getting in Tampa Bay, and you see how that's going. I mean, they are a legit contender to win the division for another year, and they are a legit contender to make a run to the NFC Championship game.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's so sweet. These are the moments that keep you coming back as a sports fan, because you were in the barracks, you were in the fight the whole time, even in the darkest of days, right? it's always darkest before the dawn, and it was very, very dark defending Baker Mayfield and saying that he's still going to do some things in the league. But being to the other side, folks, let's rejoice. Let's enjoy it. Hopefully he stays healthy. I think that's kind of the one key factor that you never can really, predict or anything like that. Let's hope he stays healthy, and let's hope we keep these good times rolling because, man, I'm enjoying watching it every Sunday. Having that side-by-side on Red Zone of Deshaun Watson getting murdered and Baker Mayfield throwing a fourth touchdown. Mwah, 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 mwah. I loved it. Give me more.
And with that note, we'll transition on as Brad got that right. But when it comes to our against the spread picks, well, not good. Both of us.
That was a good segment. That was nice.
1 and 2. Thank you. The broadcast school has really paid off.
Yeah.
1 and 2 last week for both of us. I went 1 and 2. I backdoored with the double overtime victory by Oklahoma State as they won by 8. They were 7.5-point favorites. Thank you, Cowboys. And then, Brad, you got your lone victory from my tally in that Boise State 3-point loss at Oregon. Your Packers pick missed, and your Jets pick against the Niners missed as well. I had Kansas beating Illinois at 5.5-point favorites in that one. They didn't even win. And then Kansas State, I had them with a 10-point advantage or 10-point spread, and they only won by 7. So, like I said,
Struggling
is what's going on for us right now. 1 and 2 last week. I am 3 and 3 on the season. Brad is 2 and 4. And I'll lead things off this week with my 3 picks against the spread. I'm going to start out with our own Oklahoma Sooners. I'm going to take Tulane plus 13.5. I like the, nearly 2 touchdowns with the way that Oklahoma's offense has been moving. Yes, their defense is going to be good, but Tulane has shown that they have the ability. Like I mentioned, 34-27 loss to Kansas State. Oklahoma 16-12 victory on what may have been a questionable safety. All that to be said, I like Tulane plus 13.5. And if they don't get it right, I still win because that means OU is going to win. I'm going to go.
You know what that's called, Steve?
What's that called, Brad?
Emotional hedging. And I love doing it myself. So kudos.
Yes, you do. I learned from the best.
Yes,
Texas. I'm going to take Texas, the Longhorns, 35-point favorites against UTSA. Longhorns coming off that 31-12 victory in the Big House against Michigan. Yes, there may be a little bit of a what am I looking for here? Hangover of sorts. But UTSA did lose by 49-10 at Texas State last week. Give me the Longhorns, 35-point favorites over the Roadrunners. And I mentioned Texas State. I can't go 2 weeks or into a third week and not go with G.J. Kinney, Brad. I can't do it. I'm going to take Texas State plus 1.5 versus Arizona State at home. Jordan McLeod, the transfer from James Madison, Sun Belt Player of the Year, is now the quarterback for the Bobcats at Texas State. They're hosting Arizona State. This might be their most difficult game remaining on the schedule, brother. If they can get past this one, it could potentially be smooth sailing the rest of the way and into the playoffs. Give me Texas State plus 1.5. So my picks, Tulane plus 13.5 at Oklahoma, Texas minus 35 versus UTSA, and Texas State plus 1.5 versus Arizona State. That's my against the spread on this September weekend, the third week of college football.
Well done. I like it a lot.
Thank you.
I'm staying away.
0-3.
Yeah. I'm staying away from the college slate this week because, as we talked about before the show started, it's very scary. But I will say, keep an eye on that Memphis plus 6.5 points against Florida State game, just for funsies.
Yes,
it's not an official pick, but if you wanted something for the college slate, there you go. Okay, my best bets of the week. Let's get into it. This also feels gross. I'm doing a lot of gross things this year, But give me
You're
the
going to take
Dallas
an MLS
Cowboys.
game.
Give me the Dallas Cowboys minus 6.5 points against the New Orleans Saints. The Cowboys are at home. They just came off a massive road victory, pummeling the Cleveland Browns. Looking very good. Very, very, very good. Dak Prescott is paid. CeeDee Lamb is paid. Will Micah Parsons be paid? Probably not, but we'll see. But that's okay because everybody's happy right now. Meanwhile, the New Orleans Saints also had a big victory last week, but it was against the Carolina Panthers. And I think we all know what's happening there. And I don't think I really have to explain further. So give me the Cowboys minus 6.5 at home.
Okay.
Secondly, where am I going, Steve? Where am I going? Where am I going? I'm going with Jim Harbaugh.
Okay.
Minus 6.
I just saw that one, and it was going to be one I was going to throw out there.
Yes. That's right. I did just mention the Carolina Panthers. And guess who they're playing this week? The Los Angeles Chargers, who just had
Los
a
Angeles Chargers.
great victory in week 1. Harbaugh's first game back in the NFL. The Panthers are just so damn bad, okay? So damn bad. And Harbaugh's teams are usually pretty damn good. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to give you a lot of reasoning this week because it hasn't worked the past 2 weeks, so why waste my breath? And let's get this show wrapped up and go to bed, huh? So give me the Chargers minus 6 against the Panthers. Boy, the Panthers suck. Anyways.
Yeah, they are bad.
Third and finally, the most entertaining game on the slate in my eyes this week is a Sunday night matchup between two young superstar quarterbacks and probably the future of the league moving forward. CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams are locking up. The Texans host the Chicago Bears. I am taking the Houston Texans minus 6 against those Bears. The Bears clawed their way to victory. Caleb Williams came out of the gates a little bit slow. His defense picked him up. His supporting staff picked him up. I think Chicago's a good football team. Do not get me wrong. But I think Houston is a great football team. And I think they can hit the gas when they need to. I think they can make plays when they need to. And I see them kind of pulling away from Chicago late in this game. I think it's going to be close for a while. I think Chicago's defense is going to be able to keep them close in that game. We'll see if Caleb Williams can make any plays this week. But I do see Texans kind of pulling away, maybe 13 to 16 point victory, wrapping up that Sunday night matchup. But it should be entertaining, and I'm looking forward to it. So give me the Houston Texans minus 6 against the Chicago Bears.
All right. So to recap your picks. Cowboys minus 6.5 versus the Saints. Chargers minus 6 at the Panthers. And the Texans minus 6 versus the Bears.
Tell me how the Chargers one loses, by the way. Because I want to circle back to this. If that doesn't cover, we're going to have to break that down because there's no way that doesn't cover, right?
No,
You saw the Panthers play, right?
Yes. I agree. I'm right there with you. I will be blown away if they somehow do not cover that 6-point spread.
Make sure we clip this for next week whenever I'm in pain.
Will do.
Thank you.
All right. That's it for this week, September 11th, 2024. As always, follow us on social media on Twitter at Game On Guys, Facebook Game On Pod, TikTok Game On Pod, our Instagram and Threads, gameon.pod. You can also check out our website, gameonpod.com. That's a great way to find everything about us and along with our picks. And you can always email us, gameon@gmail.com. For Brad Bollinger, I'm Steve Braun. This has been Game On.